Well, I've got Bradford Ferguson here today, who single-handedly moved the stock up to a $4 gain today just by his enthusiasm over 12.5. So, Bradford, I've never seen you so excited. Oh my goodness. And that was just the print portion on X. So I can imagine what it was like at your house.
Yeah, so I was able to check out version 12.5 on a hardware for Model Y in Indiana because they started pushing that out to people who had it their software update preference set to advanced. And a friend of mine got it and let me supervise his car for 2 hours. And it drives more or less like a chauffeur. So a chauffeur is very measured and smooth in how they drive. If you're an impatient driver and you've ever had a chauffeur drive you around, you're probably like tempted to say something, but then you look at their suit and tie and their nice hat, and you're like, no, they're not a cabbie. I'm not going to say anything and offend them. And I don't drive as good as them anyways. So what I was amazed by with 12.5 is that it drives more smoothly than I do.
Yeah.
I've lived in this area um, for 18 years. And like I know how to drive roundabouts, but it drives the roundabouts smoother than I do. There's a lot of times where I just don't even notice it decelerating, going into an intersection, and it just like maintains its speed in the roundabout, and it's like extremely comfortable, like you would feel as if a chauffeur was driving you around.
Right, right.
So that really put a big smile on my face, and we did drop a video on our Rebellion Air channel along video of the first part of the drive is 40 minutes, where I'm with my friend and we're talking about that going through. I'll be adding another video maybe tomorrow. That's an hour 20 minutes.
Wow. Speed it
Just
up.
basically one long clip. Hopefully I can upload it to Dropbox and all that. Yeah, so it's zero disengagement in 2 hours of driving, 50 miles, suburb and city, Indianapolis, north side of Indianapolis, lots of roundabouts, lots of normal intersections. I think Tesla is getting extremely close to being able to switch to unsupervised FSD.
Yeah.
They just made this big switch at the beginning of the year, changing the name to supervised and getting rid of beta. I think it's going to be a year or less
A year or less. Okay.
that they can get to unsupervised. And what that means to me is there might still be some hiccups with like parking and just starting on a route, but like once it starts, if they enable an unsupervised mode, basically you wouldn't have to watch the road. And then once it's nearing its destination, it makes sound at you that you need to take over and it's going to turn off.
I see.
So I think that would be interesting for it to do. I don't know how many people would trust it, it's just like the early adopters, but
Yeah.
it is extremely good. And I was blown away. And I think many people know me as fairly balanced. I do get excited from time to time, but that I'm not one for hype.
Yeah. So would you have thought, as you think back over the ride, and of course you'll know more when you go over the whole video tomorrow, but would you think that it could have acted as a robotaxi on that ride? Not all the time, but is there any point at which, if it hadn't had a steering wheel or brakes, it would have needed some kind of intervention?
So I'll answer that question a little different. So
Okay.
they began to push out 12.5 to Model S's, X's, and 3s that have the software preference set to advanced.
Right.
So I got it on my X this morning.
Oh.
I brought my X into work. I was so excited about it, about how good 12.5 is. I told my team about it, and I let 3 of them sit in the driver's seat and supervise the car, and each drive was about like maybe 15 minutes. And the reason I did that is like I knew they wouldn't need to take over for anything. So like I think it's very close to robotaxi ready. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and there was dozens and dozens of videos today of people talking about their rides and people commenting on X. And so there was still a few situations. One time it kept going straight in a right turn only lane. I guess the right turn only was, just a painted indicator on the road. There was a couple of other ones, but in
But
general,
like in real life, most people, if they get in the wrong lane, they're not going to turn right and then go out of their way 3/8 of a mile to like do a box
no,
to
right,
get to
right.
the right thing.
Yeah.
They're going to squeeze in
Yeah.
and ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of little minor things.
Right.
So for me, it drove better than I do, except the only thing I would have done differently in my driving is on speed bumps, I would slow down sooner before the speed bump.
Right.
It,
Right.
it waited a little too long to slow down. But like that's just incredibly minor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm as you are. Of course, we were joking about you moving the market today, but
Yeah, that
the
was a
stock,
joke.
but the stock did go up nicely today, and there was plenty of good news that could have been part of that. I think it was more or less the normal bounce
Mhm.
with good news, helping it along the way. But you commented today on X that Wall Street analyst doesn't mention the biggest news from Tesla's 10Q profits report, $1.8 billion hiding in plain sight, but then raised the price target from 205 to 300 because why? Because the stock is up. You said
Yeah.
stunk, of course, but
I can be a bit sarcastic, yeah.
of course, of course.
Yeah, so there's mention in Tesla's 10Q financial report that for Megapacks they have this thing where it's called unsatisfied performance obligations.
So we're going to be saying UPO a lot now, huh? UPO.
UPO.
We got to learn another 3-letter thing. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you got to learn to believe in UPOs. Um, what's wild about it is it grew by 1.8 billion, and basically when Tesla sells a mega pack, they say, okay, well, once we turn on the mega pack, here are the basic specs it needs to be able to achieve. Like here's the throughput, here's the capacity, etc. Here's how quickly it can do it, and these are the economics you can gain by scooping the lowest price on the day, and selling at the highest price. That's what these utilities do with the mega packs. So that's what these UPOs are about. They're written in a contract. Tesla is part of the contract writing. In our opinion, they have a high certainty that they're going to meet, 90+% of those obligations in the contract. It's probably close to 100%,
Right.
but we want to be conservative in our estimate. So that's what it is. It's like Tesla gets the mega pack. It comes out of Lathrop. They put the concrete slab at the site and they have these hookups. They drop the mega pack in, they hook it up, but it's not yet fully connected to the grid. It's not turned on.
And at this point, they may have received some money up front
Mhm.
that is fully recognized. They might have received some money
Yeah.
just for putting it on the slab that's fully recognized, but there's points of recognition like somebody building a house and they're paying the contractor as the contractor goes along.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So you probably they've recognized a really good portion of the sale price, but then what remains is this UPO this unsatisfied performance obligation when they turn it on. So what we found is that what's called the current portion, the portion that is expected to be recognized in 12 months or less, went all the way up to like something like 2.56 billion. I could be getting that wrong by a little bit.
Something like that, yeah.
So that means like over the next 4 quarters, they expect to recognize that much in UPOs. And that's should be nearly pure profit. So we estimate the profit margin of that to be 90%.
Right.
Probably plus.
Yeah, right.
So that it probably should be continuing this quarter as far as in the third quarter. But we think like for sure it should start by fourth quarter. If we don't see a big burst in profitability from the energy side by the fourth quarter, then maybe we're somehow wrong about all this, but we're highly certain that we're correct. And what this means is they've been reporting profit margins around maybe 25%, 20 to 25%. And this could cause their profit margins to somewhat normalize around 38%, according to the math we were using and the assumptions we were using.
And these were assumptions actually that you and I, and what was his name? What was that guy's name? He was on the
Larry Goldberg.
No, Larry Goldberg
was one of them, and Matt Smith.
Yeah, but there was a guy that he's kind of disappeared now. He was there for a while. I forget what his handle was.
Well, he was saying margins would be 70%.
Yeah, he was way up, but all of us were kind of in this 40-50% range in terms we just couldn't figure out what the heck was the cost that was anyway. So it'd be interesting to see if that actually turns out to be the case. Now, to be clear, for those who are really wanting to get it down, there would probably have been some take up this quarter from units that were sold a year ago. Yeah, there are 2 years.
So going into this quarter, that current portion was $1 billion. So we would estimate anywhere from 150 million to 250 million of that might have been recognized this past quarter, and that would have dropped close to pure profit this past quarter.
Right. All right. Okay. So yeah, very, very interesting. So then the other part of the energy storage story, which I've been talking about ever since we got the report, ever since we had the call, is Elon's statement that no, the Shanghai plus Lathrop was not going to be double; it was going to be triple. I'll preview Brian Wang's video with me tomorrow. He thinks, triple and maybe more. So because he doesn't know what would hold them back from either one of those locations even being more if they felt like they needed it. But anyway, if it's 20,000 units or 10,000 units is Lathrop's capacity, triple that would be 30,000 units. You and I in the green room, you said that it'd be about $1 million per unit would be the average selling price. So
that's because normally these get bought in groups of 50 to 100. So the pricing around there is around $1 million. Yeah.
Right. And in future months and future years, maybe a lot of their units will be sold, 1 or 2 at a time to hospitals or to charging stations or hotels or things of this nature. But for now, they're being sold in these big groups. So that's $30 billion a year, though. That's not anything to sneeze at. So then you're figuring it might be as high as 40% margins all in, not necessarily immediately 37%, something on that nature. What does that come after you do all the math? What do we come out to in terms of what you think this is going to be on a per share price in terms of earnings?
We were estimating in our video, which is also on our Rebellionaire channel, and this was with Larry. So Larry did a great job bringing this to Matt's attention and making Matt aware that this is a high margin. I'll call it an asset, but it's probably not. I'm not an accountant, but it's a high margin thing that's coming to Tesla, and Matt wasn't quite aware of that. So in 2027, we're estimating that it's $2 per share that
After
Tesla
tax.
Energy is contributing.
After tax.
Yeah, after tax. So, total profit per share. Um, but it may be even bigger than that.
And if we're
We'll have to see.
yeah, and if the energy division is growing at 50% per year with no TAM, essentially no TAM,
No limit to the TAM, right?
yeah, unlimited TAM,
Potentially.
then you might be looking at a 50 PE on that. So you'd be talking about $100 a share just for energy. And if you back that up 2 years, maybe you're talking about it should be what, $75 or $80 now of the value of the company might be in that range. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
Yeah, and what's interesting about the total addressable market or the TAM discussion is a couple of years ago we were talking about peaker plants that mega packs would basically replace peaker plants that operate for maybe 5 days out of the year,
Right.
when everyone's using their air conditioning. But now people are talking about just a regular power plant. The base load of that can fluctuate quite a bit. And using the mega pack to run the power plants at a different level, and being able to like either flex up or flex down depending on the cost and the profit opportunity for the utility.
Yes, we brought this up. Believe it or not, I always love to toot my horn on this channel, of course.
I don't mind either.
If we were early on something, but we had a gal on the channel about a year ago who came on and said, yeah, the number one application and the number one that is existing utilities, their normal power facilities in order to do this load balancing. And a lot of what went into Australia was that load balancing. That's why it was so profitable for those companies in those first few big projects. So the load balancing, of course, we know that there's load balancing for wind and solar because of the intermittent aspect. But no, on these power plants, it's a very big deal. And Elon said it could double the capacity of some of these utilities.
And maybe, the load balancing and like giving a big assist to the normal power plants, maybe that does mean that plants just get retired anyways.
Yeah, anyway.
Because that's your most expensive. So
Yeah.
maybe it's still kind of a part of it, but that was interesting to hear that discussion recently.
Absolutely. Okay, we had a couple of other pieces of news today. We have direct sales now starting in Kentucky. So a bunch of folks got together and figured out a way to go around the law. And so now the Teslas will not have to go through a dealer network, or people won't have to drive outside the state of Kentucky in order to pick up their cars. Be nice if we could get that done in Texas. And there's a couple of more states that need to go that way too. So I thought that was pretty interesting news. You reminded me that we had a nice increase in the subsidy in China to around $2,500, I think, $2,700 a car.
Mm-hmm.
So that can't hurt sales, and that's going to, I think, substantially help sales in China. They're very sensitive, according to my sources, to these kind of subsidy issues over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few different subsidies, and some of them are just like being able to get a car, where there's these license plate restrictions and lotteries to be able to get a license plate for a car that burns gas or petrol. But if you get an EV license plate, there's more of those available, or they're easier to get.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few different ways that the Chinese government is supporting EVs.
Do you believe that Tesla should take $5 billion out of their coffers and send them up the road to 𝐂𝐤𝐤𝐴I and buy 17-20% of the shares of 𝐂𝐤𝐤𝐴I?
So I was skeptical about this,
Oh, you were? Okay.
and the Tesla community has converted me a bit.
Okay.
What makes me skeptical is that 𝐂𝐤𝐴I seems to be pursuing a lot of the same things that OpenAI and Meta are pursuing with large language models and multimodal models. And those have a lot of value for the end customer, but in general, companies may be challenged in commercializing or getting paid for that value they're giving
Right.
to the customer. Um, and one big problem I have with it is Meta is essentially giving away their models for free, and they just released their 405 or 605 billion parameter model, and you almost need like a supercomputer at home to run it. But they released that for free.
Yeah.
So it's open source, and you can even use it for commercial purposes. I'm like, so what's 𝐂𝐤𝐴I going to commercialize? Um, so I'll confess something, and this is not investment advice or anything. I had the ability to participate in the
Oh,
𝐂𝐤𝐴I
yeah.
funding round,
Yeah.
and I didn't. And part of it was just my struggle with this, and thinking there were some better opportunities. But um, I think increasingly Tesla cars are going to be communicating with each other.
Yes.
And
With the people in it.
yeah, with people in it. Also that Tesla bots or humanoid robots will be communicating with each other and the people they interact with. So not only communication, but I think like there's this, there's going to be some magic that we don't even realize about AI. So like, what if there's an AI hive mind? And I know that could sound scary. Insects and spiders
Right,
and
right,
stuff
right.
like that give us all the creepy crawlies. But like, if you can design some technology around a hive mind, where Tesla cars are talking to each other, so they're, going around where there's heavy traffic, they're let each other know where road closures are, potholes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I see the value to Tesla. I see it for transportation. I see it for labor in the factories. Um, so I'm generally supportive of Tesla uh, gaining better access to a resource like this. We all know how disappointing Siri has been on the iPhone,
Hmm.
and finally Apple is addressing that.
Hmm.
But like having a really good assistant, like a Jarvis on an Iron Man suit, having a really good assistant in your car would be really, really cool and a lot of fun. And I
Yeah.
think that would help sell more Teslas.
Yeah, I do too. I've been saying this for a while. I think I started saying it about, I don't know, a month ago. I said, we got to get Grok in the car because I mean, you can think of the conversations you can have, and it's got to be Grok because it's got to be snarky. It's got to talk back to you, give you a hard time and stuff because that'll be part of the fun. So, like some of the bots have done
Yeah.
in the movies. So I look at it this way. Let's say you have $100,000 investment in Tesla. You might have more than that. I have less than that, but we all have an investment. This would be 1/100th of our investment. So you may have passed up that opportunity to get in on the thing with the 𝐂𝐤𝐴I, but I'm guessing it was more than $1,000 or a couple $1,000s. But if you had an opportunity to invest in 𝐂𝐤𝐴I right now and it was going to only be 1,000 or a couple $1,000s, wouldn't you do it? Another Elon Musk venture just because it's Elon? Of course I would.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to think about it for 5 seconds.
Yeah. So I think the reason you're saying like it would be like a percent is because, the value of the stock is what, is it 600 billion or more?
600 billion or more. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if they put in 5 billion, that'd be less than 1% in a
right.
way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense to me. And in a way, it's kind of a minor decision, though it would be a good chunk of their cash, but their cash keeps growing. It was like 20 billion last time we were having a debate about buybacks or not, and now it's 30 billion.
And if there's
Uh,
any company in the entire world that could raise money in a nanosecond, either
mhm.
by borrowing or by going back to the capital market, it is certainly Tesla. They can raise money so fast. All right, so you're okay then with the XAI decision. Glad to hear that. Let's go to unless you have anything else on
Yeah,
Tesla.
that is not a voting recommendation
Not a
or
voting recommendation.
or financial advice.
So okay, no, let's flip to your other question for me today. You said, Randy, what
Randy.
are you talking about?
Yeah, so I was watching a video you were doing with Brian Wang, and you were talking about $700 a share on Tesla stock price. This is, before the earnings, but
Right.
earnings only sent it down, after today, maybe 7% or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
You're talking about $700 a share on Tesla's share price by year end. And I think it's irresponsible to be talking like that, Randy.
You're responsible. Man, that's heavy.
That is heavy.
All right.
I
So
know you see some like a potential for pickup in profits next year.
yes.
Um, so what would be the catalyst with profits for this year? Like,
So my analysis is actually extremely simple. We're a
okay.
much bigger company with much more cash, with no debt than we were when the stock was at 410. Much bigger company, well over double the size of the company, way over double the amount of the net cash on hand, net of loans is many times higher than it was back in 2021. Was that 2021 or 2022?
Mhm.
November of 21, I think it was. Yeah, November of 21. Huge difference in the size of the company. I believe that the reason that it was at all-time high at that time was because of FOMO over full self-driving. Because Elon, this is like early on when he was like, okay, we've got it. It's done.
Mhm.
And so there was FOMO, there was Elon's success record, everything else, I believe, drove people to go, I got to be a part of this big thing, because Elon's he's so enthusiastic about it. So I think that's why we got to 411 or 410 or whatever it was. Well, now we're a much bigger company. So between now and the end of the year, I think we are going to have FSD complete for sure. All the functionality will be there. I think that'll happen before 1010. You'll have reverse, you'll be able to park it in your garage. It will actually know which house you live in. Things like that will all
Mhm.
happen before 1010. But then I think we'll have what you just said a few minutes ago. I think we'll have unsupervised driving before the end of the year. Once we've got unsupervised driving, I don't see how in the world the share price will stay under $700. There you go.
Okay. But like, where's the profits before year end? We're like, with Nvidia, we're at 6x and essentially a year,
Yeah.
or maybe a year and 4 or 5 months. They had the benefit of profits like growing by more than 6x.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I
no,
think even more than 10x. So.
yeah, I just think it'll be FOMO. I think that people understand, people, even the ones that are most negative on Tesla, or the most negative on the opportunity that's in robotaxi, understand that if it really happens, it is bigger than NVIDIA. It is bigger than, Amazon cloud. It's bigger than, it's the biggest. Again, Elon believes it. Kathy believes it. I believe it. I think you believe it. It'll be the largest business there ever has been. Once, if it comes soon. And
Until humanoid bots.
until humanoid bots. So at $700 a share, not only are you figuring in some value, which was already being figured in 3 years ago, and now it's 3 years later with a drivable car that we get in that you just did and go, oh my gosh.
Like,
And
it's embarrassing. The car drives better than me.
drives itself better than you. And in addition to that, you've got the optionality on Optimus. So at the point that you get FSD solved, what have you solved for? You haven't just solved for the car. You're basically solving for Optimus at the same time.
Mhm.
So I just think that's the number I've got in my head is once FSD is solved, actually solved, and Elon says you don't have to watch, it's unsupervised now. However he describes it, I'd like him to say Tesla's responsible legally for when FSD is on. Or he can say you can sleep in the back seat, or he can demonstrate that on a long drive with him in the back seat, something like that. So anyway, that's how I come to my number.
Okay. I think reverse is going to be trickier than we think. I think I worry a little bit that it's going to send the rock star engineers at Tesla for a loop. It just adds another dimension. It's like going from one dimension to two.
Yeah.
I'm not a science person, so that may not make sense, but I think it's going to add quite a bit of complexity. The car does need to reverse,
yes,
to be able to like be full robotaxi. But I don't think it needs to reverse for unsupervised. So if you're going from A to B, like sleep in the back seat, you do need reverse. But if you're not needing to, if you can just be in the front seat but not be paying attention and be ready to take over at the end, I think you don't need reverse for unsupervised.
I also think there's definitely going to be a person that you can get in touch with. When this is a robotaxi, there's going to be somebody, even when you have no steering wheel and no brake, there's going to be somebody you can touch bases with if there's a real problem. It's not going to be like Waymo where they have 1.5 people watching you for every one car, but it's going to be somebody that you can call. You can go, hey, Grok, I need a person, and they would be able to remotely solve your problem for you.
Maybe, or maybe like an AI that's watching.
Could be an AI, yeah, that's true.
Where it's just kind of built differently. It looks at the situation differently.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the economy for a minute.
Sure.
Okay, so the NASDAQ is almost 10% off. I know I'm tooting my horn again. I know I said for how many weeks now that we would have a fullback. So we got the NASDAQ down 10, Dow and S&P both flirting with 5% off. Are we going to go the whole banana and have a 20% off NASDAQ and 10% off on the other two?
Well, there's been a big move in rates, and if the 2-year uninverts with the 10-year, generally that can be a bad sign.
Bad sign.
Might be heading toward recession. I think it needs to uninvert anyways.
Yeah.
Even if it's a good situation. People are really concerned about that. And I think the PCE came in hotter today.
Well, PCE is tomorrow, but they do give you in the numbers on the
There was something that came, there was an
numbers that came out. The numbers yesterday on the GDP, I think, was the numbers that came out today on durable goods. Maybe it's the durable goods number includes a PCE estimate of what's going to happen. It's not exactly the PCE, but it does give you some. We know
that came in hotter, and hopes for a Fed rate cut in September are way, way too high. Not financial advice. I don't know if it's still 94% in the Fed funds rate futures market, but like I'd be tempted to take the other side of that every day. Like if I'm putting in $6 and I get 94 if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if that's how it works. It may not work that way,
Yeah, right.
but like I
Yeah.
don't think it's gonna happen. And if you have hopes of that September cut go away, I think that would be a negative for the market. So like that could be a trigger just for a further sell off, just something as simple as that.
Yeah, I think what we're, let me, I'll make a quick case for the fact that we are already in a recession. It started, the consumer ran out of money in June. They've already run out of money. You've got housing down big, auto, all three companies, horrible second quarter results, down big. You've got UPS, negative, down. You've got three airline stocks that have all come out, all three horrible results, all down. You've got that report that I was talking about this morning, the durable goods report, horrible report, one of the worst reports ever in terms of their future analysis, future orders so they did okay last month, but they're not doing okay in the future. They don't have their order book is one of the worst points in, I think, 15 years. So it looks like what we've got is the consumer running out of money in June, maybe already entering into a recession in June. Definitely, if we get 2 months like this in a row, the third quarter is going to be recessionary. So I think what you were pointing to was that the GDP number came in hotter than was expected yesterday at 2.3 or 2.4. But that GDP number would have been for the whole quarter. So April and May might have been fine. Because as you know about recessions, sometimes these things come on fast. And the consumer it's like everybody at the same time goes, out of money.
Yeah.
So what seems to be going on, in my opinion. And so I think that's what we're seeing with the inverted curve. I think that Fed president that announced yesterday that he had changed, ex-Fed president that announced yesterday he had changed his mind on a dime and said he thought it was a big risk of a recession if they don't move fast. I think he's seeing those same things. So I think we're in a recession. I'd like to see more numbers. Of course, next week's labor numbers will help on that. Oh, also copper, 7 days in a row down. You know, that's Larry's favorite canary in the coal mine. Plus the inversion.
What about housing stocks or housing?
Housing was horrible. Housing, I've been saying for months now that this was because everybody bought a house that wanted to buy a house over last winter in the off season, because housing is very seasonal. So there's a huge amount of buying between October and March, and then everybody that wanted one bought one, and then your mortgage rates went up again in April. So that's what I've been saying over and over again. I'm beginning to wonder whether it's more a case of the folks that most would like to get into some of this new housing can't. They've gotten themselves into a place where they're either don't have the down, they don't have the monthly, so they're just not able to, because they've just spent all that money they got from the pandemic money. Savings rate down to 3.4%, super low.
So
that's my theory.
Your two largest purchases in the economy are houses and cars.
Right.
So if both of those are doing terrible, that's
Not
really
good.
bad. That's really bad. And then transportation, what's going on with airlines, what's going on with UPS. UPS might be a function of what's going on with FedEx or Amazon, but transportation is vital to our economy as well.
Right.
So that's really concerning.
Yeah, no, overall, I'm thinking that's where we are. I do continue to, I believe that we will go down that 10% or whatever on the NASDAQ. I mean, another 10 to
You need
20%.
more, yeah.
Yep. And I think we'll go down another 5 on the S&P and the Dow. But I do believe we will be up by the end of the year, assuming that we get the change in government. So a change in government almost always results in a positive market as well as a positive economy in the next bit. So I think that if we get a change in government, we'll have that. And that isn't even a political statement. I could not care. I could be all for Kamala and still say, historically, this is what happens when you get a change of government. If you keep the same government in, you don't get those advantages. Typically.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I think we are. I'm not sure, but that's my thinking right now. Any other thoughts on Tesla, the economy, on the stock?
I think we hit a lot of dramatic stuff. 1.8 billion added in 1 quarter in Tesla Energy. You think about it, there might be another, you can watch our video, but basically these UPLs are going to accumulate and Tesla's going to be, meeting those milestones isn't the right thing, but like,
right.
They're going to meet the performance metric that's stated in the contract. And that's a really big deal. Is basically like zero mention in Wall Street about it. So we just came out with the video today at 4. I predict by 2 Fridays from now, Wall Street's going to figure it out.
Oh, okay. 2 Fridays from now. All right. We'll be watching.
They'll start to talk about it.
Okay. 2 weeks from the time that we talked about it. All right, good. All right. So let's see. And
12.5 is a huge,
a
huge step up, step change.
Yeah.
It's so good. I won't repeat myself, but I think it's a really big deal. I think Tesla's extremely close. So I'm really excited about that. And Elon said that essentially Lathrop plus Shanghai is going to be triple kind of what we're expecting. So yeah, a lot of good news on Good News Thursday this time.
On a Good News Thursday. That's right. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go early so you don't have to sit through the boring part. Okay. So
I just don't have much to comment on,
I know.
What's up and what's down and what's unched.
Okay, Bradford. Thank you so much as always for coming on. All right. Thank you. All right. Bye for now. All right. So let's take a look at what's happening with the markets. Let's start with today's action. Of course, Tesla ended up only 426. The entire market fell apart at the end. Tesla went with it. So it had been up as much as over $8, but ended up today up 426 in what was overall a pretty darn down day for the market. We got the Dow did finish up 81, but it had been much higher. NASDAQ finished down 161. The S&P finished down 28, and all of the Magnificent Seven finished down, in some cases pretty big. Meta down 7, almost 8. Microsoft down 10.50. So Google down 5. So it was a big down day for the Magnificent Seven, and the Cathie Woods were mixed, but mostly up. Again, almost all of them suffered from that end of the session sell-off. In percentages, you have the Dow down 0.2. You have the NASDAQ down, I'm sorry, Dow is up 0.2, NASDAQ down almost a full percent, 0.93, S&P down 0.5, and Tesla up 2 full, 1.97. Close enough for government work. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the bonds. We got the bonds in the pre-market here. 10-year is down 1.1 basis points at 4.244. Look at that. Just below my break number, that 4.25. So 4.244. You've got the 2-year is down 0.8 of a basis point. And to the point that that Bradford was talking about just a few minutes ago, that difference now is 4 43. It is 19. So we're back to 19. So we've been sitting over 35 for a long time. You may remember we were at 33. We dropped all the way down to 14, 15. Now we're back up to 19. So it'll be interesting to see if this follows through in the morning, because we've been heading towards a reinversion into the normal setup, but that is now reversing a bit. All right, let's take a look at oil. It turns out that oil was falling somewhat, at least according to my sources, based on a sense that China is not doing that well. People talk about China doing better, but China is stimulating their economy again. So that doesn't suggest that China's doing that well. So right now, though, no change basically in the pre-market on oil. 78.29 for Texas Intermediate, 82.37 for Brent. Natural gas up a little bit, struggling. So apparently the $2 level is going to be a fight. It has been dropping rapidly and heading towards $2, but staying over that at $2.05. You've got gold picking back up after a big down day today, up 970 in the pre-market, back to 23.63. Silver down, not anywhere close to $30 anymore, sitting at 27.98 after being well over 30, I think over 31, 32 last week. Copper continuing down. This is what Larry Goldberg's favorite canary. But right now it's only down 0.24%, but we're at $4.11. Looking like it could end up with a 3 handle shortly unless this turns around. Now, when you get this amount of down trend this fast, you know how I think about it. There's probably going to be some kind of a response to that. We have got the dollar continuing down against the Japanese yen and up against the euro. That has been a trend now for a few sessions. And you've got the Bitcoin down 40 at 65,825, back to the very, very middle of the range and kind of sitting there the last couple of days. All right, what about the equities? The Dow is looking at 75 up, or 0.18, S&P up 9, or 0.17, and the NASDAQ up 28.25, or 0.15. So they are in lockstep here, up about 0.1516 in that area. So that's a good look for tomorrow morning. Now, by the way, breaking news, OpenAI announces a search engine called Search GPT, and Alphabet shares are dipping in the aftermarket. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. Alphabet in the after hours down another 2.61% in the after hours. For those of you who like numbers, that would be $4.53 in the after hours. So big news that OpenAI has now got a search engine out. It's in beta. It's just the beginning of this, in their intentionality in that area, but it shows that they do intend to have a search engine. Okay, that's all I got for you today. Please like and subscribe and hit notify. Of course, Brian Wang will be here tomorrow morning. He and I just did a great video. This is going to be all time. It'll be, this one I just did with Bradford, I thought was pretty darn good. But Brian Wang, oh my gosh, he's going to really go into what's going on with these data centers. Why do we need a Memphis data center and a Fremont data center and a Austin, massive, biggest in the world in Memphis, second biggest in the world in Austin. What is Elon doing? Why are all these top companies, moving towards this requirement, this burning necessity to burn billions and billions of dollars, trillions even, to have the biggest data capability and biggest GPUs, et cetera, clusters, and way more. That's just a piece of what we talk about tomorrow. Don't miss that one. Hit notify so you make sure that you see that roughly 11 o'clock California time tomorrow. And then, of course, Larry Goldberg will be with me tomorrow night. You want to be notified about that as well. Earlier today, I did a Cern Basher video, and of course, as always, Cern brought the charts and the graphs and some humor. as well as some valuable information that might help you make decisions with regard to your portfolio. All right, that's it. It's been great talking to you.